Hello and welcome to the Temple of Tomes with your host, Indie Comics Jones. Today is March 13th, 2022, and this is episode 488. Hey, we're looking at Rogue Sun today. Comes out from Image at a whopping $3.99, and of course, Image is celebrating their 30th anniversary. I'm trying a different approach to my camera holding today. My feet are killing me, so I'm trying to keep them up in the air. Anyway, this is a not recommend, unfortunately. This is like the fourth in a row that I'm not recommending. It does have a famous, or semi-famous, maybe like a D-lister writer on here, as in Ryan Parrott. He does work on Boom Studios' what's that called? Power Rangers. He's written some of the Power Rangers. He was part of J.J. Abrams' cadre and worked with Star Trek Into Darkness. I believe that's the name of the title. It was the third one under the J.J. Abrams and probably the least liked. And we've got our Rogue Sun here. Yeah, this was kind of underwhelming. There's a lot of stuff that just doesn't make sense. The character needs a lot more fleshing out. And we'll get into that in a little bit, but let's take a look to see who has worked on this. We have Ryan Parrott, who we just talked about, as the writer. Abel is the artist. Chris O'Halloran is the colorist. Becca Carey is the letterer. And then you have a bunch of people for doing different covers. I'm assuming this is Declan Slavery and Chris O'Halloran doing the cover of this one. Let's take another quick look at this. This is an all-new character, by the way, all made up by Ryan. And you can have Kevin Higgins to thank for this. Or excuse me, Kyle Higgins, because he's the one that talked Ryan Parrott into doing this, or gave him the idea to do something like this. So we get this action scene where Rogue Sun actually apparently meets his doom at the hands of this guy that he's thought he's taken down. He runs to an abandoned building. This is taking place in New Orleans. Just kind of show you the fight scenes. The art in it's just okay. I didn't really love it. And I believe it's supposed to be kind of in the future. So this is his demise pretty much right now. And he says, when the night fails, a sun will rise. This is chapter 1. So we see the disintegration of Rogue Sun, supposedly. Now we go see his first son here from his first marriage. And he's not a very likable character, other than he's fairly good looking. He's actually bullying a friend of his right here to have him do his chemistry work for him or something, homework for him. And they kind of go off after he locks him in the locker, and he makes a play or flirts with a girl that he went on a date with. He didn't call her back or something. I can't remember exactly. So she just blows him off. And then he's told that she's dating some other guys. That doesn't make him happy. Then he goes home, and he finds there's a lawyer at his house, and his mom has been crying. He says, why are you crying? He's like, well, your father died. And he's like, that deadbeat? You know, that type of thing. He says they're living kind of paycheck to paycheck, apparently. But they weren't invited to the funeral, but they were invited to the reading of the will. So off they go. And this is when they discover that, Dylan Bell, his father was Marcus Bell, discovers that his father was absolutely rich, stinking rich. And, of course, it doesn't make any sense, because if he really cared about his first son or his first wife, there seemed to be no problem between the first wife and Marcus Bell, but for some reason he divorced her, said it was better for the career. At least that's what she told herself. And then he went off and married another woman who had 2 more children with her. And they're living in this palatial mansion. So when it comes to reading of the will, and Dylan's mother is there as well, he gives everything to the second wife. Like, wow. Nothing at all. Apparently he's very, very wealthy. He doesn't give anything to his son or his first wife, except for he passes on the sunstone, which seems to be the thing that kind of cursed his marriage, his first marriage for some reason, him turning into a superhero. But it turns out the other two kids wanted that sunstone, like they knew something else. I don't know if they knew he was Rogue's son or what, but Dylan Bell never had any idea that his father was a superhero. So that's the end. Then we get to a crime scene where they're in auction, and suddenly this group of faceless villains comes in, and this mean guy in the middle, his name is Suave. He is the main criminal. And apparently the original Roxanne had come up against him as well, and they'd fought before. Because what happens in the meantime is, with this sunstone, he is told by his mom that the sunstone guides him to places where he's needed. So he somehow activates the sunstone. It's not really clear. And he turns from this jerky teenager into pretty much a Danny Sue. He can fly. He's got all these powers. He's going to be a good guy now. Yeah. And he comes up on the faceless gentleman known as Suave, and he crashes into the alley because he doesn't realize he hasn't really learned how to master all his powers yet. He goes after Suave. Suave easily takes him down and figures out that it's not the original Rogue's son because he doesn't know who he is. And so he just tells them, instead of killing you, I have to get this package stolen to my boss. So I'm going to let you live another day, which I don't know why he would do that, but he's doing that because he's a good, I guess he's a good supervillain, and he wants the series to go on longer so he can be in it longer. So there he goes. He traipses off in the back of his truck with the stolen item that's supposed to have some kind of mystical powers. And this is when we find out that Marcus Bell really isn't dead. And he's telling his son, "You're embarrassing me," and it's to be continued. Now we get a thing, chainmail here. I don't know if you want to read this. Pause it if you wish. You don't want to read it. I'll kind of get in there close as I can. Go paragraph by paragraph so you get a good shot of it. And then we get a mock interview with Ryan Parrott on the next page here. And he just talks about how, how he always wanted to write comics, how he wanted to reboot Superman and Batman, or Spider-Man, because he had hundreds of stories to tell. So he's a rebootist, basically. But he didn't get the chance, but he ended up making films, or getting film, and moving on back onto comics with the Power Rangers and whatnot. So you got this little story there. I don't know if you want to read that. I'll go back up here. You can read his interview if you wish to pause. If you're on a PC, you should be able to read this. And we'll do it one more time. And then we get a page of his script, which is helpful. If you want to write your own comics, there's many ways to write a comic book script. This is one of the ways. I think he does a pretty good job of showing how it's done. He's had a lot of work in film, and this is pretty close to a film. This is pretty, as he puts it, a thin, basic script. It doesn't have a lot of description or camera angles or anything like that put in it. And some artists want a lot of information, and some don't. So some don't need it. They can kind of figure it out on their own. So then we get pencils of the layouts. Take a look at that. Give you a little blurb down here so you can read that if you wish to pause. Then we get the inks. Same deal if you want to pause and read that. Take a look at the inks. Now what's interesting is the inker did make a lot of changes throughout this page. So that was kind of cool. and maybe did it digitally so we could move things around easier. Then we get the colors. And then the colorist did a pretty good job, I think. I wasn't crazy about the art, but it was fine. And then this is Rogue Son 2, where he's sitting with his half-brother and sister, and I don't know what you call him. Is it stepmom? I don't know. I guess stepmom. It says, "Come on, what's the real reason you made me Rogue Son?" And that's supposed to be the catchy title for the next issue. So there you go. Rogue Son, not a recommend. I think the character needed to be fleshed out. He needed to be more likable. The father needed to be more of a stand-up guy, not just a superhero as well in his alter life, his real life. And it make no sense the way he treated his first wife. I just don't get that at all. But, yeah. And he continued to treat her the same way after death, not giving them a cent. Now, maybe there's going to be some comeuppance with the other family. I don't know. It's implied that there's going to be some things that we find out later. I just really don't know at this time, but it doesn't make sense for him to be so bad to his first wife for 20 years or so. Or maybe not even that, maybe 15, I don't know. But yeah, it's not a recommend. But thank you for stopping by and listening to this video review of Rogue Son #1. As always, please like, please subscribe if you haven't. Please leave comments if you wish. And we'll see you next time at the Temple of Tomes. This is Indie Comics Jones bidding you adieu.